Another issue is that the general treatment for OCD, exposure and response prevention, is really not applicable for misophonia, at least not without medication or some sort of departure from normal application or approach. Generally, OCD sufferers have some sort of phobia for a thing, place, situation, etc., that they can generally avoid. If, then, a person is exposed to what they fear, such as spiders or dirt or something, for a long enough period of time, they will gradually come not to see it as a threat anymore. However, people with misophonia are identified as not being able to block something out, particularly sounds that bother them. We put up with listening to the annoyances day in and day out every day, and it's miserable and it never gets better. As a result, we do tend to have headphones in our ears to drown out the noise, and yes, this may reaffirm the idea in our minds that the sounds are bad, but it's better than the alternative. The idea is that by exposing misophonia sufferers constantly to the annoyances combined with coping techniques, the reaction should at least become less strong. This is a type of behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, also called CTB, to help undo negative thought patterns or schemata. However, in practice, results do not seem to be that great, especially since some sufferers have also been bothered by the noises for as long as they can remember. There is one key element, however. Although OCD sufferers are exposed to their problems off and on day in and day out, they have practiced rituals and or avoidance to escape the problem, as I mentioned with the headphones earlier. If we were to associate OCD with misophonia, a technique would have to include a more complete constant exposure. The issue with real-life situations is that, although we can spend time in a restaurant here and there for coping with eating sounds, the problem is not fully addressed because there's lag time between annoying noises, as opposed to constant stimuli. If exposure and response prevention is to be usable in this regard, it would have to be on an audio or video recording without interruptions. For example, I could have a tape recording of nothing but one noise after another, with no breaks or gaps. Even so, there are still some doubts. There are some noises that bother people which are, by nature, repetitive or even constant noise. I've had to put up with certain repetitive noises that I hear over and over again, and I still never get used to them, even after listening to them off and on all day, even for hours at a time. And even if I did manage to block them out here and there, my brain would always go back to them, as people with this sort of disorder tend to be very sensitive to their environment, though this could be a result of an obsession, or even combined with it as a sort of package deal. I know a little bit about this because I worked outside as a landscaper and was ultimately fired from the job because I refused to take out my headphones because I couldn't stand a repetitive sound. However, even then, I do admit that if the sound had simply continued all day long without rest every single day, I might well have actually gotten used to it, though it would have taken a very long time. But even then, that would still only be for periods of time here and there. The problem is always twofold. Not only are there usually breaks in the noise in real life, but these noises are not an inseparable part of the world, like the wind blowing through the trees. They are, and always will be, viewed as an intrusion by the mind's eye. This, however, does lend some credence to the notion that misophonia stems from an obsession.